Wow, look at all these people. What is everybody here for? I'm just playing. We know we're all here. Byron and Elaine are finally retiring. So I just realized I'm third on the list. So we all know why we're here. To give you a quick look at their 32 years of service, we have to go back to February 14th, 1975. From 1975 to 1983, Byron and Elaine had two perfect boys. The first one was Ben, born in 1979. The second one was Joel, born in 1982. During this time, Byron worked at Domestic, a linen company, and Elaine worked at the Salvation Army, the West Side Corps, under Lieutenant Al and Carol Irvin as a secretary. Let's see what these two, Al and Carol, had to say about Byron and Elaine before they became officers.
Okay.
We're Al and Carol Irvin. When we were in training college, our second year spring campaign was in Wichita, Kansas, at Wichita Best.
Best.
And we visited them in their home when they lived on Seneca. And then later on, in 1980, we moved to Wichita as lieutenants, and we were there for officers. And while we were there, shortly after we got there, I started talking about selling work rides, door to door. And Elaine said, when the Corps officer is out there right alongside of us selling work rides, instead of sitting in the van going around checking on us, I'll be out there too. I said, I'll hope you have a good pair of shoes. My practice was I was one of the first ones out of the van to sell work rides, and I was one of the last ones in. After the first night, Elaine went out and got a different pair of shoes.
Oh yeah, I remember when she would go on vacation, I would go in her office where she worked as our secretary, and I would straighten up the cupboard and put stuff in the cupboards.
From 1984 to 1986, the Medlocks lived in Chicago, Illinois, where they were trained on how to become pastors. Joel and Ben lived it up, basically ran the show at the school for officers training. Then in 1986, the Medlocks transitioned from the large city of Chicago to the town of Atchison, Kansas. Here in Atchison, a kind of sort of big thing happened. Rachel joined the family in 1989. During their time at Atchison, they made an impact not only on the community of Atchison, but also on others that worked at camp, namely Chris Curry. Let's check in with him to see what he has to say about the new lieutenants.
Hello, Lieutenant and Mrs. Medlock. It is a privilege to greet you. Wait, they've been promoted to captains? No, to majors. Wow. Well, I guess that makes all the more sense as to why you guys are retiring now. I couldn't believe it when I heard that this was true. Time stands still for none of us. And in case you don't recognize me, I'm Chris Curry. We met back during the 1980s when I was first on staff with Camp Mocan. I remember when you were young lieutenants and you came out to visit the camp for your summer assignment, and you jumped in with both feet. Frankly, we didn't know what we were doing, but you showed us what it meant to serve and what it meant to love on these kids, and you did it with grace and integrity and humor. Well, okay, Byron, it was dad humor, but you were being true to yourself. Anyway, you also invited us to come back to see you guys at your Corps. What summer staff member wants to do that? But you invested in our lives, and you loved us in such a way that we saw it was genuine. And I remember one Sunday, another guy named Dennis Bachman and we drove up to Atchison, Kansas for a Sunday morning in the off season. And we saw how that love that you showed during the summer was the same every Sunday of the year at your Corps. The soldiers and the members there, they knew that you loved them, and more importantly, they knew that God loved them because he used you as a willing vessel. Well, then you took us back where, Elaine, you prepared us a home-cooked meal, and that was really important for bachelors and young college students. We didn't get that very often. We saw how you interacted with Ben and with Joel and Rachel at home, and today as adults, they're sharing that same love to their kids and the people they encounter through work and through officership and their different roles in life. Thank you for what you've done there. People have been watching you for decades, and you didn't even know it, and I'm just one of them. Thank you that you've been consistent in your walk and in your servant leadership.
Then in 1992, the Medlocks moved once again to take an appointment at Bellefontaine Court in Kansas City, Missouri. During this time, they added on to the building, and they even got a visit from the general. Also during this time, the kids continued to grow and progress through school. Then, in the summer of 1992, the kids came home from school to find a pair of cowboy boots on the porch. We all knew we were headed to Dodge City, Kansas. During their time at Dodge City, Kansas, the Medlocks got the privilege of running their first thrift store, living where the smell of money was awful, and finding out just how windy Kansas can be. Also during this time, Joel completed middle school, Rachel completed elementary, and Ben graduated from Dodge City High School as a Red Demon. Officially, the worst mascot ever. Then in 1997, it was time to move again, and it was off to Leavenworth, Kansas, the place with a lot of prisons. During this time, the Medlocks were in charge of their second thrift store, thriving daycare operation, and a fantastic staff. Lifelong friendships were built here, and sadly I have no stories from them as they have gone on to be with Jesus. I like to say that Lou, Sharon, and Helen White are their names. During this time, Ben had gone off to the University of Kansas, Joel got through high school and pushed Mom's buttons the whole way through, and Rachel was a great student as always. And we lost our lifelong dog named Sandy. Then in 2002, it was time to move from Leavenworth, Kansas to Midland, Michigan. Sadly at this time, Byron, Elaine, and Rachel would continue on by themselves, as Joel has decided to move in with Ben. During this appointment, the Medlock family grew on August 14, 2004, when they welcomed Emma and Mary into their family. Then in 2005, the family grew once again when Joel and Jill got married on June 18th. Also during this appointment, Drew was born on December 31st, 2005. Then, in 2006, Zach was born on June 30th. The family grew a lot during their time at Midland. Also during this appointment, Elaine lost her father in 2004. To give you more of an insight into what happened at Midland, Tom and Mona Clark shared some interesting stories of the Medlock shenanigans.
My name is Tom Clark, and
What church did you go to? What church did you meet my parents at?
yeah, Salvation Army Corps in Midland, Michigan, and best officers we ever had. And that's why I'm crazy enough to drive here to Fargo, North Dakota for Byron and Elaine's retirement. We followed them around, and went to Arnold's, to Rachel's wedding and whatever, and we just can't get rid of them. Anyway, one of the humorous stories from Midland is that, and Byron is a menace to traffic. He made a bet or a pledge or whatever that if we could get 200 people in the chapel over the course of a month or whatever on Sunday, that he would preach from the roof of the church. And we kept him to that pledge. And so on that given Sunday, we were all sitting out on the lawn, and Byron was up on the rooftop. How he got there, I don't know. And quite a high roof, like it's probably 40 foot to the peak. And he's up there, and we're all looking up, and he's giving his sermon and whatever, and all of a sudden, pow! We hear somebody out on the street was looking at what we were looking at and looking on the roof and took down a couple of mailboxes. And so it was a rather humorous situation, but one story that I remember.
I'm Mona Clark, Tom's wife, and attended the Salvation Army with him and our two sons who have since grown up, since we have known Byron and Elaine. But one thing that I would like to tell about Elaine, our current officers, Captains Katrina and Brian Goodwill, were asking us about previous people that we had known, and I described Elaine to Katrina Goodwill as this marvelous lady who has every T crossed and every I dotted, is the best bookkeeping, organized, and Katrina said, "Don't say any more, Mona. I looked at the books. She did a better job taking care of all the paperwork for the Salvation Army than anybody I have ever seen." So Elaine, hats off to you.
Then in 2008, it was time to move once again to Arnold, Missouri. During this time, Rachel graduated from high school and also met the love of her life, Joseph Irvin. Also during this appointment, we lost two more grandparents. Byron's dad passed away in 2006, and Elaine's mom in 2007. Then in 2008, they moved once again to Chillicothe, Missouri, and Rachel and Joe followed. Their relationship blossomed while in Chillicothe. Then in October 10 of 2010, Rachel and Joe got married. Then in 2010, the Medlocks moved once again. This time they moved to Minneapolis, Minnesota to work on the DHQ staff. During this appointment, the family grew once again with the birth of Eli on March 16, 2011. Then in 2013, my parents made the move to their final apartment, Fargo, North Dakota. During this appointment, we lost our final grandparent, Byron's mother, Hermina, at the age of 97. I don't have any stories of this appointment, but I know you do, and I hope that you share them with them today on their last Sunday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We love you, Grandma and Grandpa.